Okay. So Lynette, show me the back end functionality of DiSC. We've been chatting about this in person with some interested individuals, but I wanted to show them exactly the functionality and the benefits of the back end of the DiSC profile assessments.
Okay, so this is the backend platform. So once you've completed an assessment, you'll get access to this entire platform. What I find really helpful is when you start looking at it from a team perspective and you start understanding your colleagues and how your style works in comparison to another colleague that you work with. So this is an operations team that I'm part of. You can see I'm LZ. I'm falling here in the steadiness category. There's lots of teammates in the dominant and the C and the I. So we can kind of see our whole team in a snapshot there. You can see different highlights of our style, our different priorities that we have, which is really important. So you can go through that for each different style. But this is where I find, like, I love this uh, graphic right here on some very like key tendencies within the workplace. We can see where our whole team lies in terms of like being accommodating, private versus outgoing. So this team, we have a lot of super private people. One person's really falling out here on the outgoing side. So I find this like continuum extremely helpful in being able to understand team dynamics. If you're planning for a meeting, how is it going to be most effective? What's the most effective way to structure that meeting?
I mean, if I'm thinking about this from an orientation standpoint, and you have a new person joining the company and they can see who the private people are versus the outgoing people, it might help with integration, knowing, oh, Jane is just a little bit more private. It's not that she's cold, or I just know if I want to go and find the person who's going to be throwing the party for my orientation, it's probably somebody on the right.
100%. And that's how you can also start to build different teams, right? Like you kind of know maybe we need someone who's a little bit more outgoing because we have super private people. You can really start to use this in terms of like project teams, right? Depending on what the
Mhm.
project is, you can look at tendencies and see who would be most the most strong in that area. So there's also like different tips about how you can more effectively communicate, like conversation starters, group insights here. There's one other platform that I'm just gonna scroll back to. And I'm gonna compare to a colleague because you can dive really into individuals and understand what's the best way to approach an individual. So this is Andrew. He's a dominant person. I can know about what he cares about, when to pull him in, when he's stressed, our different maps, um, differences, similarities again. So it really helps. So if you're coming into a tense conversation with that specific individual to understand them better, do I need to soften this blow, or will that just kind of like go over his head? And or do I need to be super direct with him? Because sometimes if you soften it too much to a direct person, they might not get the message that you're trying to send to them. So you can also like dive into like certain individuals on the platform as well.
So you and I are essentially where Andrew, actually, I'm way more D high as D as you can possibly get. And what we learned when we did this, we always love this analogy, is there's certain things that I like. I like directness. So if you have a question for me, just call. Just call, hit the video call button and get on the line. Just ask me directly. Do not book a meeting. Do not, put it in the calendar. Whereas you like to know what's going on ahead of time. You don't like the spur of the moment type of calls. So for us, and I always use this because I always have that in the back of my mind. And it's not that I don't call you spur of the moment, like this morning when we're doing this video. But I often apologize first, knowing that this is going to throw you off your game a little bit, that it's not your favorite thing to all of a sudden just, hey, good morning on a Monday morning. Can we do a video? So these are the ways that we understand each other better. Another team member that we have is more on the seaside and a crazy researcher, likes to know the full picture before making a decision. And with me, with the D, I like fast pace. I like quick decisions. I like to move on. We'll pivot, we'll change it if it's not the right decision. But those two kind of characteristics, without understanding those pieces, could easily clash and not have a respect for each other. I can assume that she just doesn't know how to make a decision, and she can assume that I might be a little bit too foolhardy in my decision making. So this has helped in those regards with understanding. And we're a team of, I think 5 of us are on this chart that have done this on our team. Tell me a little bit more about how this can be used in the goal setting and review process.
100%. So I think it's really helpful, first of all, in terms of how you're positioning that conversation, right? How you might approach a conversation with me being a steadiness person. I really value collaboration, teamwork. So how we approach that conversation might be a little bit different versus the C person who needs a ton of information in order to set their goals, or the D person who's more direct and just wants to get into it, right? So I think the first step is just in terms of how do you approach a conversation? A lot of people are scared of the feedback conversation. So I think preparing yourself for that conversation is really helpful in knowing how that person receives feedback. And then in terms of goal setting, so for a C person, for example, they tend to get really buried in data and information. So we need to set really strong milestones and targets for that person to keep them on pace and that they're not getting bogged down into the research. So there's a lot of different ways that we can tailor our performance reviews, the conversation, and how we're setting those goals with the individuals.
Awesome. If you want more information about DiSC, if you want to see how this works for your team, give us a shout. We'd love to go through it more step by step with you and show you all of the insights that you can get.